Hey everyone, this is Chris.
And Lorenzo.
And welcome to our Best of Saturday series. Now that we have hundreds of episodes, we get a lot of listeners asking us where to start.
So we'll be selecting some of our most popular episodes to share each Saturday from our years of podcasting. We hope you enjoy it.
No role plays, just real. Chris and Lorenzo share 4 decades of combined experience to help you become a more effective leader.
We've never really, as a workforce, spent a lot of time on making sure we're developing good leaders.
We'll be able to share stories, experience, mistakes, failures, successes.
This is Hacking Your Leadership.
Welcome to Hacking Your Leadership. I'm Chris.
And I'm Lorenzo.
And Lorenzo, on this episode, what I want to talk about is the concept of how seriously we take our jobs and ourselves. I've worked with people throughout my career who took their jobs really seriously. And I noticed something about those people, which is that a lot of them tended to take themselves very seriously as well. And I've also worked with a lot of people who were really great at not taking themselves too seriously, but they also didn't take their jobs very seriously either. And it's been very rare, though it has happened. I have some good leaders that have kind of been good at finding the balance in that. And so it's a hard balance to do. I know that it's hard for everybody. It's hard for me too. Have you struggled with that in your career, in moments where you started taking yourself too seriously or not taking your job seriously enough, or vice versa? Have you worked for leaders who've struggled with that? And how do you kind of get through that? And how do you try to lead your people and find that balance?
It's like 5 questions at once. Okay.
I had 10, but I cut it back to 5 because I didn't want to overwhelm you, Yeah. But you're a smart guy. I think you can handle
it. Yes, and no, maybe yes.
Perfect. All right. This has been Hacking Your Leadership. I'm Chris.
Yeah, it's interesting because I think that initially when I'm reflecting on myself and thinking about that question, I tend to take the work too serious when I feel that myself or my team are capable of more or capable of being better. But I think overall, I wouldn't necessarily say that I struggle with it, because at the same time, I kind of feel like I take my career serious, as in I stay aligned with values, I stay aligned with a clear direction, a clear vision. I make sure that the things that I'm doing as a leader are reflective of the brand of the team, of my direct leaders and things like that. And at the same time, I like to have fun, and I like to make sure that people understand that there's bigger things in life, and that it's while there may be times where we get frustrated or where things don't go our way, whether it's myself, my team, or my peers, those around me, that at the end of the day we can figure it out and work through it, and that there are bigger things in life than just this maybe project or this strategy, that type of thing. So I think that after having a lot of years in kind of the leadership roles, I've learned to balance it a lot more than previous. I can remember specifically as a younger, newer leader. But I took it really serious. I took
Sure.
both, both the job and both myself. And I think over time you understand and learn that there's a certain ebb and flow to business, and that things will, have their highs, things will have their lows, and it's not the elimination of the lows. It's really the closing of the deltas between the highs and the lows. It's kind of what you shoot for in the long term. So you learn to kind of accept the fact that you're going to have times that are really, really good, and then you have times that would be a little bit more difficult. And setting yourself up from a strategy standpoint for the future to eliminate those big roller coasters, I think is what keeps me grounded and allows me to have fun, while also making sure that I'm delivering on the expectations of my role.
Yeah, I mean, it makes perfect sense. So then the follow-up question then is, why do you think it is that a lot of leaders who are tenured, far along in their career, have such a hard time doing that? So it makes sense that with the context of time and with the context of experience, you start to put less stress and pressure on yourself for the individual minor decisions and day-to-day things that don't amount to much in the long term, things that you may have worried more about when you were just starting out and thinking that every little thing mattered. But now with the wisdom of years behind you, you can kind of you keep that in perspective. But then there are a lot of leaders that are your age and older and with your level of tenure and years in leadership roles and more, who still have a really difficult time doing that. They take things so that everything is so serious that they become almost unapproachable. They become, you know the old saying that the steps we take to avoid the outcome we're trying to avoid are the steps that actually bring us closer to the outcome. And I think that fits really well there. The leaders that I know, that when they react poorly to a down month or a down quarter or whatever it is, taking that very seriously, the steps they take to try to rectify it are the ones that tend to push their employees away and make them disengage and make them not want to follow them anymore. And so they're trying to avoid this thing and they end up hastening it instead.
Yeah, I think it's at that point it is about, and this is my opinion, I think it's about complacency and reactive leadership. I think it's people get to a point, and I've seen it, where people feel like, oh, this is on autopilot, and I've done this for so long that I can figure my way out of anything, and I can jump in and twist things and pull things to get some type of result to happen in the short term if I need to keep myself out of trouble. Like, there's this overconfidence and almost like this lulling to sleep from, I guess the complacency and the monotony of people that have been doing a job for a long time. And I think it becomes a, I'm not going to be involved in empowering my people at a very micro level. I'm not going to push myself or my team to live up to the best of our ability. I just kind of want to sit in the middle, and then when things don't go well, I'm going to jump and react to them to try to push them so that I can get off of that list. It's kind of like early on our podcast, we kind of talked about that idea of like mediocrity and how I spoke about it in my book, just around like that there's a vision of let's just be in the middle, and that's a bad vision too.
Right.
Like that should not be your vision. But I think that's what ends up happening is that people want to just be kind of left alone and set it and forget it, and we kind of just exist, and we do just well enough to not be on the bottom or be held accountable, and we don't push ourselves too high so that we don't have a lot of attention, and people want to know what we're doing and how we did it. And I think in that type of an environment, that's exactly what that breeds, are leaders that become unapproachable, that all of a sudden things get real serious when they are on one of those lists, up or down, and you're spot on. It creates an environment where people aren't empowered, they don't feel inspired, and they don't want to approach that leader because they don't trust that leader to grow them and develop them, because they can clearly see the leader's not doing it for themselves.
Yeah, I think that's a great analogy and a great insight into that. And I've worked with several people like that. Now let's take it the other way too. There are leaders out there that are incredibly approachable, and I think that they do their best to empower their teams, and they put them in situations to grow and for them to learn. But it seems like nothing is really taken that seriously. Like, they don't take their job very seriously. They don't. I don't want to say they don't care, but it seems like they don't care. It seems like they just kind of skate through their day, and they're available when they're asked. They're very approachable. That somebody comes and asks them for help, or they work on development with people. But when it comes to the job itself, they just don't take it very seriously. They don't. It seems like that they could just kind of take it or leave it. Have you worked with people like that before?
Yeah, absolutely. I think that it's the case of what people do is like not what they're passionate about. Maybe they're good at it. We've spoken about that before in the podcast. Sometimes people are good at doing a job, or they're good at leading a team to get something done, but they have zero passion for the work itself, or they don't personally connect with the larger vision of the organization or the work that's happening. So yeah, I've absolutely seen that. I've met plenty of people in the retail industry where they are good operators and they know how to run an effective retail store, but they have they're not excited or passionate about people development. They're just like like, hey, as long as we get these results, as long as we get these numbers, as long as we grow our business, we're good. And if some of you get promoted because we do a good job, great. And if some of you don't, whatever. Like they're not in it for the people piece of it. They're in it because they need a job and they happen to be good at this thing and it pays what they want to get paid. And they're not aligned with the part of a culture and environment that's about empowering people and inspiring people, and that's usually what I see in the retail industry. I don't know if you've seen anything different in the businesses, the companies that you've consulted for, but that's usually what I see when it comes to leaders that just seem like they could care less.
Yeah, I worked with a leader like that for a few years, and he was a really, really nice person, like the kind of person you could go, have a beer with and sit and chat with for a long time. And he was incredibly great at inspiring teams of people. But there were times when he would not just figuratively, but literally not show up to work for a week. Like just not come in. And it was almost like exactly what you said, where he wasn't passionate about the job. He didn't really seem like he was passionate about anything. But he could talk a good game, a really good game, and because he was a really nice person, no one really gave him a lot of crud about that. And eventually, it came back to bite him a little bit. But he always struck me as the kind of person who he'll never die of a heart attack at 60 or 70 years old, because he just doesn't care enough about anything for that to give him stress. He just kind of like skates through life, and things have always just come easy. And so he just does what he can to get by and uses those strengths that he has. But those kind of people, I think they can kind of they get followers really quickly, but they also there can be a danger in following people like that, because other people around them know what they are all about. They know that person doesn't care, that they're not committed to the success of the business. They're just committed to making sure that somebody leaves them alone for another day.
Yeah, and I think a part of this too, like as I've been reflecting on what you were talking about, the leaders that I've seen do a really good job at it. I don't know that I've ever heard them say things like, "Hey, we got to make sure that we take this job serious when it matters, but we also got to make sure that we don't take ourselves too serious." Like, I've never actually heard that vernacular from leaders who do a good job at this. I think what they do well is they help connect what we do every day to how it impacts us in a positive way, how it can impact me personally, my family. We talk about why we work hard, why it matters to show up and be our best. Why those are skills and things that not only help us build a great professional work environment, but help us personally. And we share, and this leader would share personally how, being able to break through certain ceilings and achieve things with teams that they never saw or never thought would be possible, how that translated into their home life, and it helped them achieve personal things and lead their children in a different way. So I think the leaders that really get it and are good at helping others understand it, approach the work in that type of way. I'll never forget, I did an interview panel with somebody who worked for Starbucks, and a leader asked them a question of like, what's the thing that you do when you work at Starbucks that you would be happy if you never had to do it again, ever. and I'll never forget it. And
They're like help customers.
right, yeah.
Have a nice day. Yeah.
Thank you. Right.
Yeah.
No, they said they were like, make frappuccinos, and they go, why? And they're like, it is just such like a pain to do. And it's like it can cause, and I didn't know this, but like it can cause a hiccup in the flow of getting drinks done, and it just like it delays drinks getting done because it takes longer and all this type of thing. And then so the follow-up question was like, well, why do you do it? And like if you never had to do it, like why do it? And they said, well, they were like, what I know is that every frappuccino that I make that a customer wants to buy and they're happy with how we make it creates a loyal customer that comes back and spends money at my location. And the profits from my location are the thing that allow me to have a job and have a career and give me a paycheck that allows me to feed my family. So I make them all the time with a smile on my face, right? So like it was
Right.
just one of those things where this person had really understood that sometimes we do things at work that we don't want to do, or that can seem frustrating, or whatever the case is. But at the end of the day, there's a value to it, and the value is that we get to do it, and that we have customers and clients and communities that count on us to deliver something, a product or a service. But it just makes me think of how that was just. I remember feeling like, yeah, like they really understand that, like it's about your attitude, and it's about understanding that yes, your job is serious. Yes, we have results we have to drive, but we also have to remember who we serve. And that's the community, and that's our customers and clients, and we can't take ourselves too serious.
Yeah, that story kind of made me think of something, and I think it's an important distinction, is that the person you were talking to, it was career oriented. So that person was, that they tied in the bigger picture of how it helps them. The what's in it for them was what was in it for their personal life, the quality of life they were able to provide for their family because of the work they were doing. And I think one of the pitfalls of taking yourself too seriously at work is if you lead people who are not career oriented. So if you are a leader of people that, if all the people reporting up through you were career oriented, meaning they weren't working a job, they're working a career, then the kind of consequences of taking yourself too seriously might not be as bad, because at the end of the day, those people are connecting what's in it for them anyway. Like, this is a decision for them to make, to come to work and to do a good job, because they're trying to advance themselves. They're trying to make a better life for their family. When you're working with a lot of people, or have people reporting to you where this is a job, this isn't a career. It's a way to, pay the car payment while they go to college, or it's a way to, it's a stepping stone in a long journey that for them, that where they have bigger plans. The danger of taking yourself too seriously is that you turn people off, because in their mind, if they're thinking, well, this isn't a career anyway, why should I put myself through the stress of dealing with this person and dealing with these things that I know that they're not serious things, but my boss takes them so seriously. It's a huge turnoff. And if you're not a career-oriented person, or you're doing this job as a means to an end, or a means to something else, it could be very easy for those people to get disengaged. So if you're the leader of people like that, being approachable enough to where, the things that shouldn't be taken very seriously aren't taken seriously, then you kind of meet people on their level. You meet your employees where they are, and then you become much more approachable than if you're the person who just wants to make sure everything's perfect because it's your career, but it's their job.
Yeah, no, that's a great point. And with that, it brings us to this episode's 1 minute hack.
The 1 minute hack.
Okay, for this episode's 1 minute hack, this is going to be about taking your job seriously without taking yourself too seriously. And the way you want to make sure you do this is kind of what I like to call an 80-20 rule on when you interact with your direct reports. And so what I want you to do is think about all the times you've interacted with your direct reports over the last few weeks, and kind of write them down, whether or not these conversations were work-related or not work related. And when I say not work related, I mean anything. It could be what they did over the weekend. It could be what their long-term goals were, what they're studying in school, how their family life is, anything that is not specifically job related. You want to make sure that 80% of the conversations that you have with your employees are not work related. 80%. Seems like a really high number, but I'm talking about every interaction. It could be a passing conversation in a hallway. It could be stopping by their cubicle and having a 5-minute chat. The career conversations are the career conversations, and those are important to keep focused on the career with the personal stuff peppered in. But on the interactions happening day to day, you want to make sure that the employees that report to you see you as a person before they see you as a boss or as a leader, because they're not going to relate to somebody that they don't see as an actual person with goals and dreams and personal life outside of work themselves. And the way you make that happen is to make sure the majority of your interactions are not work related.
Yeah, I think it's a great 1-minute hack, and it's a great reminder to connect with and to have, a good personal relationship and trust, just even through conversation with people. And what that then allows them to see and to understand is that if you do take certain parts of a job serious or certain times or strategies serious, it's not that you're over-indexing in taking the job too serious. It's that this thing must really be important. And if you've got that type of relationship, you've had great conversations to get to know people, then they will react similarly to it because they understand that you believe it's important. If it's important to you, it's important to them.
Yeah, the real work on increasing productivity is not in attempts to increase productivity. It's in attempts to strengthen the relationships, because people who have strong relationships work hard for each other.
Yep. And with that, it brings us to the end of this episode. This is Hacking Your Leadership. I'm Lorenzo.
And I'm Chris.
And we'll talk to you all next time.